Okay. Part two on time as map, not terrain, and an attempted discussion. Hopefully, the phone battery doesn't overheat while this happens. Okay, so was attempting to say when the phone was overheating last time something about um, time being a map, not a terrain, is a thing in a similar in a sense that maps are made up by people, so they're imaginary. Um, as you would know, when you walk around on the grass and you climb a mountain or something like that, it feels like it definitely exists to the point where you're huffing and puffing and you rather wish you'd stayed at home and ate chocolate. Um, 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 okay, and so someone gives you a nice piece of paper with some directions on it on how to climb said mountain. You might be inclined to follow those so you don't get lost. You hope the directions on it are sound and accurate and that the map is telling you the truth. Um, and so it's a representation of the terrain and not actually to the terrain, but you're hoping it's an accurate representation so that you don't get lost and you can huff and puff and give up and go home and eat chocolate without being rescued by a care flight helicopter. um, and so maps are fucking useful. Okay, cartography is useful. It's extremely useful. Um, and so language as a type of map or representation, and mathematics as a type of language or representation, is obviously useful. Um, it just isn't what reality is. It's a description of it, and subsequently, um, is imaginary. Okay, so the person translates a perception of usually visual information into a sort of abstraction. So drawing, you would not actually build a map out of mashed potato to represent the mountain and some peas to represent the trees or something like that, because there's a pretty good chance that when you're actually trying to climb the real mountain, or the one that actually physically exists, because again, real is a strange word, the phenomena of mountain as opposed to the noumena of mountain. Anyway, so the actual physical phenomena of mountain, okay, when you go to climb that, you don't want to be having mashed potato squished through your fingers and lose your cartography or your map. You would rather very much to be able to have your hands free in case you need to hold onto a tree and pick a stick out of you or a rock out of your shoe or something, okay, and or hopefully not dog shit. Anyway, so a map needs to be useful for it to be a useful representation, and the person when they create it has to imagine what it's like to take this phenomenon called, in this case, called mountain, and somehow describe that in a way that another person can look at that and go, oh yeah, know what that means. And so they're walking up the path, going on their little bushwalk, and they know what that refers to. The abstraction involved in that is quite detailed. And so the capacity for people to exist in a world that is where their physical bodies are moving and doing phenomenological things whilst participating in a entirely constructed imaginal landscape simultaneously, called this map, which is entirely abstract, is a very intrinsic part of experience. Okay, so that which is imaginary, or as what attempted to articulate in the previous video, or noumena, for lack of a better word, is in Kantian terms real, but not phenomenological, therefore does not exist. Okay, so the space-time is where we're going to get really interesting on this one. Okay, a person had to imagine a line where there wasn't one. Okay, so let's see if the flashlight works on this one. This is kind of interesting. Yeah, it's working. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, does that help? So you put it on a surface that reflects, but you won't see the reflective surface of the light will bounce back. Does that help? Okay, yeah, here we go. Okay, so here we go. Here's a little difficult thing for you. Can you see a hand running across the screen? Okay, can you see that? It's going again. It's going again. And it's going again. Okay, that was just 4 dimensions. Okay, that was 4 dimensions right there. Oh, look, there's a 5th one. Now we're in the 5D. Now we're in the 6D. Now we're in the 7D. Now we're in the 8D. Now we're in the 9D. Okay, that's 9 dimensions. Okay, wait a minute. Where's the line? There aren't any lines. It was just a hand moving, and there was the projected idea or the imagined idea of the line. Oh, look, there's 10 or 11 dimensions, okay, going across the screen. So to plot the motion of the hand, a sort of curve or a line of some kind might have been projected as imaginary, in an imaginary sense, like so. Okay, but the moment the hand gets taken away, it's not there anymore. Okay, so when you plot the motion of the sun, okay, it looks like the sun's moving across the sky, doesn't it? It does, doesn't it? It looks like the earth isn't moving, and it's the sun that's moving. But they reckon, the same fancy physicists, they reckon that it's the earth that's moving and the sun that isn't. And perhaps the great heliosphere, which is the 200 and something astronomical units wide, which is really, really far. It's 150 million kilometres times 250 distance to the outer edges of the solar system, where the sun's gravity stops, allegedly. That moves as one object with all the planets and asteroids in it around however the Milky Way galaxy operates. So on some level, the sun doesn't move. Okay? Get this. The sun doesn't move. The planet is inside the sun's outer atmosphere. and the planet is moving around the sun. So, contrary to what ordinary perception says, which the sun moves across the sky, is actually quite different. The planet moves around the sun's greater heliosphere, which contains all the planets and asteroids of the solar system, then moves around however the galaxy causes it to move. And that's it. Okay, for that really simple story there. And when you look at it that way, you can see potentially the idea that where they plotted the lines determines where they think the movement's happening. Because before they figured out that you could see the Earth moving around the sun, it was absolutely obvious to anyone who looked, well, it's the sun moving across the sky. Okay? The Earth moving on its axis and then plodding around the sun in the course of a year is not part of ordinary perception. When you walk on the ground, it doesn't seem to feel like that it's absolutely going at a bull at a gate, massively fast, and spinning really fast to the point where that spin creates a very magnetosphere that prevents us from being turned into crispy little pieces of ash every time the sun fucking farts. Okay? It is imperceptible, therefore it's not part of ordinary imagination. It is abstract. Okay? It doesn't seem right somehow. Okay? It seems intuitive that the sun moves across the sky. But it doesn't. The sun isn't what's moving. We are. Okay? According to a different worldview. So when the lines got imaginary lines got plotted in a different way, and they say that's Ptolemy versus Galileo or something like that, okay? They decided to draw the lines a bit differently with their imaginations, and they found a different picture emerged, a very different comprehension of how things were moving. So the actual beliefs about how supermassive, critical, obvious objects behave and allegedly move is subjectively plotted by imaginary lines. Okay? Okay? So what we call motion is we perceive that thing was here, now that thing is there. Okay? We haven't proven that that even happened. We've merely perceived that it happened. And then what we've done is we've imagined a line, which is a fabrication or a projection, a construct, and connected it between here and there and called that space. And of course, an object that moves in space allegedly has moved in time, so it's therefore the fourth dimension or space-time. We have not proven the existence of here or there. We have not proven the existence of the objects. Okay? We have projected that we perceive those objects. We have projected that we even exist to perceive those objects. And we have projected imaginally a completely fabricated or constructed, non-existent
non-object called a line or a dimension to plot where those unproven things supposedly change their position. Okay? And when you see it that way, you might ask, what's the point in doing anything if you're not sure you exist to do anything at all? So, now we go to Descartes, and this is going to really annoy the simulation agendaists. Okay, Descartes is the cogito ergo sum guy. He was that French guy who was a grumpy bastard who had a surly face and was probably the cynic down at the pub that used to scoff at everything and say it was merde, it was shit, it was caca, okay? He was so cynical that the story goes that they reckon he sat in his, living area one night. This is in the 1600s in France, right? And he sat by his fireplace in his chair. He's gone, and he's one by one asked if he could doubt the existence of this or that. Is the chair real? Is the table real? Can he doubt their existence? If so, why? And he went on and on and on, and his conclusion by the morning was the only thing he couldn't doubt was that he was doubting. The act of doubt couldn't be doubted, but everything that was subject to the behaviour of doubting, the content of the doubt, could be. And this all sounds great, this Cartesian doubt, which is supposedly the base of pure reason. It all sounds great until you don't realise you don't actually know what his reasoning was for why he doubted the existence of certain things, because you can do that quite offhandedly. You can say, well, the phenomena of reality, as in the material objects, has yet to be proven as in existence. We are merely projecting our belief that they exist through perceiving them somehow, and we are yet to prove that they are there. We merely claim that they are, and therefore we can doubt the existence of all things except the one who argues whether or not those objects may or may not exist. Okay? So it's not a solid argument. It's not a sound argument, because he forgot he was an object. Right? Bear with this, because there's some people out there going to go, they know Descartes, and they're going to go, she's waffling, okay? Just bear with it, okay? Right? Yeah, they're waffling, they're fucking waffling, bitch be waffling, okay? Right? Okay? Descartes did not commit the a priori argument successfully that he existed. Okay? He post priori, okay, which means after the fact, assumed that the doubter or himself existed because, well, he could doubt, if he could doubt that everything else existed, he probably couldn't doubt that he existed, because he was, carrying on pretending nothing else did. Okay? And so it's a post priori argument. Cogito ergo sum is post priori. It's not a priori, it's post priori. He's come up with that after he's already decided that he could doubt everything else. Okay? He didn't start with the assumption that Descartes existed. He ended with the assumption that Descartes existed. That's a really interesting way of looking at it, because you don't actually, do we actually comprehend if reality is a projection from us or from somewhere else, and we're the projections? Are we projections of something else? So let's talk about the woo people, okay? Some of the woo people who are wandering around saying, oh, scientists have proven that the world's a fucking simulation, right? Okay, when they absolutely have not. They've proven that at some time in the distant future it might be worth considering as a hypothesis, but you can't now because it's untestable, and either way it's just one of many potential corollary arguments to whether or not the universe is likely real or not. Okay, it's a bunch of wordplay, okay, and a bunch of wordplay and sophistry going on. Okay, it really is. And these woo people, okay, they turn around and say reality is a projection of your mind. Well, what if you don't have your own? Is it a projection of someone else's mind? Well, whose mind is it anyway? And also, what's a mind? And what's a projection? And so this is even considering that we're just going to go with the assumption here that the word real that we're using is as Kant used it, which includes both the noumena and the phenomena. So what is real and what exists is not the same thing. Okay? Okay, so are they saying that, when they say that, are they saying that phenomena is a projection of minds, so material objects? Or are they saying that noumena is a projection of mind? In other words, the constructs, the egregores, the things that are not physical, but quote unquote exist as objects or articles of minds, for lack of a better word, okay, are a completely different reality, and realities, in fact plural, not singular, is 100% correct because of subjectivity. Okay, you can't, it's fuck that word. Okay, is it the case that what is the projector? Is it a soul? Is it a spirit? Is it a computer? Is it the metaphysical output of electromagnetic waves that are generated as a byproduct of neurons as well as other activities? Okay, and yes, Canu's a nickname. This physical body has a theory on that, okay, that goes back also to, it goes back to about 2006. We won't talk about it now, but anyway, the idea is that here we don't have an accurate comprehension on what the projector is. Do we have an accurate comprehension of what the projection is? We do know what a reflection is. We know that on the phenomenological sense, gonna hazard a guess here that you might be a sentient being that speaks this language and can demonstrate that your comprehension of the words is very similar to the ideas that are attempting to be articulated. In which case, does that mean you have, okay, if you have two mirrors facing each other, actually we'll go with four. So a box made from mirrors, Okay? Actually, we'll even go all 6 sides have, or the inner edge, or all 6 sides of the cube, or the inner edge, inner face of each side of the cube is a shear mirror. So all the mirrors are pointing at mirrors in an enclosed space, and as the exact center of the cube is a single, perfectly spherical object made from, that's very, very tiny and has no mass, okay, and is just sitting there exact center doing absolutely nothing. Okay, just imagine that for one moment, what that would be like. Would you have an infinite reflection of an infinite number of mirrors in all 6 mirrors, as well as an infinite number of reflections of said spherical object in all 6 mirrors, with a slightly different perception in each mirror due to the angle of the image of the spherical object? Oh wait, it's spherical, so it should be identical in each case, right? Okay, and if so, if you tilted the box slightly like that, okay, presuming that the spherical object did not fall out of place and took its exact central position the entire time, okay, not only would you have the misperception of an infinite number of spherical something and an infinite number of mirrors when there's only 6, but you would also have it on a weird angle. You'd have this weird idea of an infinity of balls in motion through an infinity of mirrors. Okay? That type of illusion just fuck. Okay? Okay, that's a head screwer right there, okay? It's a simplest bloody thing, and yet it's a massive it's a massive head fuck. Excuse the language, but that's exactly what it is. It's a head fuck. It screws with your head. Okay? Potentially. Not trying to project onto you how you react to things. Nonetheless, it probably would. And it seems like a reasonable assumption, though an assumption it is. And so if that were the case, right, okay, then people might look at that and they might go, well, is reality a great big hall of mirrors? And the answer is yes, kind of. Okay, there is the layer of reality that is the hall of mirrors, or people call the hall of mirrors, which is there is less objects than people realize reflecting off a small number of very well positioned places so that the illusion of massiveness occurs. Okay? That is what a black hole might be. A black hole might be that little tiny spherical object surrounded by very well positioned mirrors to make it look like there's a lot more of it than there really is, and the slightest motion of it, of the cube, in that case, would mean it would look like a very complex system of balls doing an amazing array of bizarre shit. Okay? And is that little spherical ball the so-called point of origin of the Big Bang? So that type of heady topic, you just go, what? Okay? And that 6-sided cube is what we call the 4th dimension. Okay? Wait, it's a 3-dimensional object. No, it's the 4th dimension because, get this, why is it the 4th dimension? No, it's not. You're going to love this. The number of dimensions in a system is relative to how you're measuring it, or how you imagine your plots. Okay, so technically a cube is made up of 6 sides, right? So each side has 4 dimensions, okay? And because they're connected to each other, it's not 24 dimensional. It's less than that because some sides share actually every side shares a dimension. So technically, there's 4 on one side, right? Okay, then 2 extend out, and there's 4 again. Okay, so that's 4 plus, okay, that's 8 plus 2. And then there's 2 at the bottom to connect it, so that's 10. Technically, a cube is 10 dimensional. Okay, okay, it has 10 dimensions. So there's 10 lines to make the shape. Okay, a sphere has no dimensions. Okay, because you can't plot it without getting into some kind of weird relativistic type of thing where, oh, is it about degrees or this or that? Well, does a circle really have 360 degrees? Well, no, it doesn't. A circle doesn't have 360 degrees. Okay, it doesn't. All right. Okay. A square in a circle is made up of 6 squares, made it easy to plot, and so they said it was 360 degrees or so. It's some weird number thing like that. So once again, the number of degrees that there are in a circle is relativistic to the measurement system used to plot the shapes. So the dimensionality of geometry and the mathematics that's associated with it is subjective, imaginal, and projected. You cannot say with any certainty that geometry is real outside of the nominal sense of the term. So geometry isn't real in the phenomenological sense. It's real in the numerological sense. In other words, it's an imaginary type of real. Okay? Geometry does not exist in phenomenology in the physical world. Okay, that's going to sound like a ridiculous notion to pretty much everyone, right? Isn't it? Maybe. Okay, how can geometry doesn't exist in the physical world? What are you talking about? Geometry doesn't exist in the physical world. Well, actually, geometry is the imaginal plotting of shapes as a means by which to describe objects that are perceived, whether or not they're actually there. So geometry is the subject of the noumena, not the phenomena, to use the Kantian language. And so when Descartes was doing his Cartesian graphs, okay, and inventing his calculus, he was within the realms of noumena only. He was making it up. He was projecting it. Okay, so he did not prove the existence of the graph. He did not prove the existence of calculus. He did not prove that Cartesian doubt was anything other than a cynical guy sitting on his couch by the fireplace, coming up with the conclusion that it exists on the basis that he didn't think anything else did. Okay? It was probably a solipsist argument more than anything else. And on that particular basis, the idea that reality is a projection of your mind is a sort of like post priori Cartesian bullshit brigade, okay, that pretends that you're the sole arbiter of what's real and what's not real based on what you doubt and what you believe. It leads you back into the territory of, do you have faith that object exists, for fuck's sake? Because, you don't want to trip over it. Are you serious? Okay, so there is a priori assumption made when a mere conversational talking happens is that there is talking going on. There is a talker to do the talking, and that language is passable or comprehensible by the listener, not just the speaker. And this is what's going to piss everyone off. It's not. Language is not the same to the listener as it is to the speaker. It never has been, not even in two speakers of exactly the same dialect. They do not hear the same thing, even though they are capable of acknowledging that roughly within a particular range of error, that the parameters of the colour blue are about the same. So applying that label is a suitable adjective to describe those nanometers of light. Allegedly, nanometers also being an imaginal plot to describe a particle without mass that is a byproduct of the photovoltaic effect and might not exist independently of the movement of electrons, which also have not been proven to exist until the invention of the electron microscope. Okay? Before that, it was only imaginal. And after the electron microscope, it was presumed that that's what they were photographing. We're not sure whether or not they actually did. So this idea of everything being light when light hasn't been proven to exist is a kind of bizarre anti-logic that causes confusion because we haven't defined what light is. These operational definitions are struggling, just like with the words real, exist, don't exist, noumena, phenomena, and so on and so forth. We haven't got an accurate description of a priori and post priori and doubt and faith. Okay, these are all subjective terms that the listener is going to hear through the lens of their previous knowledge, their previous experience, and indeed, based on some behavioural research, what was just said 5 seconds before, or the very start, or the very end of the conversation, being the recency, the primacy, and of primacy effect, and the ending effect, basically. So, the people will hear what they're conditioned to hear in the words that you say, according to things like operant conditioning and whatever else and how that relates to language. There are certain words that have been paired with punishment or reward so that people are more aversive to hearing them, or they're less aversive to hearing them and they prefer them over others. And so words like light, for example, in the esoteric community, were conditioned to be the good thing. You want lots of light and you want lots of love, okay? However, love has not been properly defined. Love is not an energetic state. It's a behavior, according to some people. And light has not been adequately defined by the sciences, if you're being truthful about it. Oh, they've got all kinds of ideas about it, but adequately defined in a manner which would qualify as referring to a genuine phenomena rather than a secondary byproduct of something else is yet to be adequately proven without getting into the enormous amounts of abstractions of their mathematical projections. And so we're in a rather awkward situation where what people are conditioned to believe is holy and good, for example, in the subjective sense of the term, is So, and just that, subjective, it can be doubted, okay? So you see how this language can rotate in and out of these types of subjects and stuff like that. Oh, the dark side might be the good side. Hang on. No, okay? There is no agreement or disagreement with anything at this point, okay? There is no creation or destruction going on. It is merely talking. Okay, and that talking shows that however you reacted as a listener to these words is likely to be independent of what these words are and independent of how these words are intended in this exact moment. And 2 weeks from now, when this video is played back, this body will also hear those words completely differently. Okay, because words are subjective to the speaker and the listener in situ as well as out of situ. So they've got different contexts and meanings. So this is something that where we get into things like intention and belief means that you come into a very difficult place to try and comprehend someone's intention in general, let alone by their words, because their beliefs are going to change over the course of time, even without them being aware of it, and their comprehension of words will change in situ as well. So this dynamic linguistic landscape, okay, of noumena, landscape, and imaginal projections that language imparts, okay, is not something that you can actually accurately pin down, okay? And so these Woo Brigade people just are people that take advantage of the buzzwords and make it sound like it's legit fucking science, okay? And this is where we're going to poke fun at Sam Vakinin, okay? Sam Vakinin, if you listened with the ears of someone with a psych degree who had a little bit of esoteric going on, okay, you would hear that that man is a bullshit artist like you would not fucking believe, okay? He is pulling buzzwords out of his butt, okay, with more expertise than a dark side theosophist. That guy is a dark magician, okay, and he's upfront about it. Here's how he tells you that. He says that when he was a young man, he did a Bachelor of Physics, right, and he was diagnosed as a psychopath, and he's been on a journey, you know, doing a patience read of the textbooks ever since, and he managed to get TEDx talks because he was good at reading it. Now, on the subject of patient learning and being capable of comprehending things, that's real, okay? That's not a dispute, okay? On the subject of an MS patient that looked like his body, that actually had to study what that illness meant and how to deal with it, okay, yes, patients can do that. It does help when you have a psych degree with a few electives in neurology or neuroscience, and you're raised by nurses, though, reading medical textbooks, okay? That sort of background education made it possible to sort of see the information that comes out from the MS Society in different groups through a different lens. Okay, it's not to say that people with no education can't do it. It's more to say that their appreciation of the jargon isn't quite the same. So this body, when they hear all that physics talk, okay, hears it's different from the physicist. And the physicist hears all that psychology talk different from them. So then you have Roger Penrose crapping on, and he's talking about these microtubules that don't exist as his explanation for multiverse theory when it comes to quantum consciousness. It's like, dude, it's got nothing to do with it. Microtubules don't exist, okay? You simply do not comprehend the phenomena you're looking at.